What is up, Buckeye Nation? Corey Thompson here, the OHIO podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Also, you might know me as Floco or the White Buffalo, whatever nickname Johnny wants to give me from the Scarlet and Great. Anyway, guys, appreciate you guys as always tuning in. We're going to talk a little bit about the good, the bad, and the ugly with the Ohio State Penn State game. First, we're going to start off the good. Okay. Now, some of this is going to be pretty obvious, so just bear with me. But obviously, the defense starts off. We're starting off the good with the best of the good, which is the defense. Defense played phenomenally. But here's an interesting little tidbit for you. I didn't know this before the game. That particular offensive coordinator for Penn State, Andy, I'm not even trying to pronounce his last name, versus Jim Knowles. Jim Knowles has now faced him twice and has never allowed a touchdown against him in particular. Once they were at Kansas and Oklahoma State. They faced off against each other again, did not allow a touchdown. So maybe Jim Knowles just has his number. I don't know what this means. Like there's a huge turnaround with the defense, but they did look good against Nebraska overall, and they look good against Penn State. So hopefully it is a continuing trend of a turnaround. But overall in this game, they were definitely good. Nobody can deny that. Will Howard's leadership was a bright spot. Yeah, we're going to get to some of his mistakes. Don't get me wrong here. Okay, we're going to get there. But that being said, uh, I think it was shown more than anything that he let those mistakes roll off his back and kept playing and kept swinging into Penn State. But also during that last drive when we had to seal the game, we could not afford to give the ball back to Penn State. We knew we had to end it right then and there. And you could see him. The camera panned in on the huddle just before they started that drive, and you could absolutely see Will Howard revving that team up. That team loves him. They follow him. I think they're taking on his character a little bit, and he's got a very strong character. I'm very happy he's a Buckeye, and somehow I even came away even after his mistakes loving him even more as the Buckeye quarterback after that game because solely because of that leadership that he shows. What else is on the good list? New look offensive line. You know what? We were wondering what the answers were after Zen Mikowski's fiasco against Nebraska, and then he gets hurt, and we're just wondering what we're doing. Where do we go from here? The depth isn't quite there. Enter Donnie Jackson at left tackle and Carson Hinsman at the left guard. All of a sudden, our run game picks up against a really good run defense in Penn State, on the road, no less. Donnie Jackson's first ever left game at left tackle held up solidly. I know there's a couple sacks there, but I'm not going to blame him going against Abdul Carter for his first time ever. I thought he did a great job overall. Early on, we wrote a run to the right side between Fryer and Integra. And to be honest with you, I thought that's where we're going to have to lean on the entire side. But the left side got their footing, and it has to do obviously with the chemistry between Hinsman and Jackson from the year before. They are used to playing next to each other. It's nothing new to them. Enter Seth McLaughlin, one of the best centers we've had in a long time. Put Hinsman back in there. He doesn't have to snap the ball. He can just eat people now down there. He's doing a great job. I think this has got to be the offensive line going forward, no questions asked. And is it a championship line? Time will tell, but I think it's a much better opportunity to be a championship offensive line versus what we had with Zen and I'm not trying to knock him, but with Zen in the lineup. But I do understand, and people might wonder why we didn't go to this line sooner. I can understand Ryan Day thinking, let's go to the backup left tackle and see how he fares. Obviously, the experiment didn't work instead of shifting two offensive linemen completely out of position. I understand the logic on that, but obviously desperate times call for desperate measures. We say, forget it, Donnie, you got to move out to left tackle. It's a much different assignment than playing left guard. And Hinsman, now center to guard is not as big a jump as guard to tackle, but still, it's a different position, different assignments, in a different offense. So for Hinsman to come play that well, kudos to him. The offensive line overall won the game for us. Let's talk about the running back selflessness. Quinshon Judkins and Trevion Henderson, two of the most selfless players you will ever see. Running backs love to get the ball. This is a fact. This is a test. This is something that has been proven over and over and over again through the test of time, through the entirety of football. Running backs like to get the ball. These two guys love to get the ball. They're competitive for sure, but they do understand the assignment. They do understand team atmosphere and playing for something bigger than yourself. Because these guys, not only will they give up not getting the ball 25 times a game, because between them, I think they get the ball about 25 times a game. But they not only will they give that up and give touches up to preserve their health and to preserve their freshness as they go on in the rest of the season, but they will block harder than almost anybody on the team. My goodness, on the Will Howard runs to seal the game, Judkins and Henderson are just popping people. And you love to see it. You love to see the selflessness of these guys. These guys ultimately are the leaders on this team, whether they're named captains or not. I know Henderson was named a captain, I believe, but Judkins clearly a new guy there. But Judkins is showing here. I'm not here to be I'm not here to be a diva. I'm here. I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to put a hat on a hat, and I'm going to make sure other players can succeed as well, because that's what it's all about in the blocking. The team succeeds when you do your assignment and block. And these guys are the epitome of team players, and we love them both for sure. Let's see here. What else good? Let's go to the coaching staff. This is probably the best game top to bottom the coaches have done coached in a long time. I think. I mean, it feels like there's times where we just out talent people and we just beat them surely because we're better than them physically. But the coaches kind of get out. It feels like the game's closer than it needs to be because lack of discipline. Coaches are getting outsmarted a little bit. They're not using their timeouts wisely. I felt like the coaching staff came in with a game plan and executed it very flawlessly. Why flawlessly in football terms? I understand there's little mistakes here and there. Might be a play call here and there we don't agree with, but at the same time, Ryan Day using his timeouts and managing the game, I thought he's done the best job he has as a head coach, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, yes, he's had good games as a head coach, but back when he was a play caller, now he's not the play caller and he has to manage other aspects of the game, such as a timely timeout when Tyler Warren sneaks up to the when in Aller's in shotgun, Tyler Warren sneaks up behind the center to take a snap and we call timeout, or the timeout on 3rd and 3 at the end of the game to see what defensive formation they're in. Things like that to give us just a little bit of a boost. I thought Ryan Day kept his cool for the most part. I thought the defense came with a game plan to stop Tyler Warren. And they succeeded in it. The players knew the assignment and they executed it really well. I have to give this coaching staff credit as much as we crap on them sometimes. So they did a great job. One of the best coach games from top to bottom, from every coordinator on that we've seen out of the Ryan Day era. Hopefully it continues. But let's get to the bad. There's some things that are bad. I mean, this was a great game. It was a great win, but there are still some things to clean up. Obviously, there's some missed tackles early on. It didn't really hurt us throughout the game, but early on we were missing sacks, we were missing tackles on kick returns, and I just felt like, especially that first drive, it's really got to get cleaned up. Now it did throughout the game get better, and we got guys like Caleb Downs who just seemingly never miss tackles, and they not only they not miss them, they make shoestring tackles when they need to. So our tackling is much better as a team, but there's got to be times where we could stall a drive. I mean, they may not get that first field goal. Now, ultimately, it didn't matter at the end of the game, but they may not get that first field goal on that first drive if Jack Sawyer makes a sack. They could have stopped them at the 10-yard line on the kick return, opening kickoff, and they get to the 25. Again, you might think these things add up. This is complementary football. These things start to snowball a little bit. Thankfully, we did not allow it because our team was determined to win that game, despite any mistakes they made. But those are the kinds of things you go against a Georgia or an Oregon or whatever, and they just start to pile up and cost you down the road. So I really would like to see that cleaned up a little bit more. Bad QB scrambling. Look, I'm putting it on the bad. It's something you have to kind of live with. Because we stopped Tyler Warren, we stopped their run game. Drew Aller was not, just shredding us. The receivers are not very good. Um, you definitely needed to make sure Warren wasn't the one who beat you. And outside of the last drive, he was pretty non-existent. I don't know if that's a result of the offensive coaching not utilizing him enough, or the defense really came in with a game plan to stop him. I felt like there was a lot of double coverage on him, and the run game never got going. They averaged 2.4 yards, I believe, between their two running backs. So run game was stifled the whole game. We basically were allowing Drew Aller. He said, "Aller, you're going to have to beat us." And I'm not saying he didn't. You could say he almost did, but I think that last drive was a microcosm of the game plan. Tyler Warren didn't get us in the end zone. We had him fully covered, but they ran the ball 3 times up the middle. We stuffed it completely, where Caden McDonald stuffed it completely. We were not allowing them to run the ball, saying, nope, this is no mosh. You're going to have to pass it on us. And then on 4th and goal, they tried to pass it on us, and tried to go through two linebackers in the zone, and Caleb Downs had really great coverage on the receiver and disrupted the pass. And we had Tyler Warren out to the flat, completely covered. So it was kind of a microcosm of the entire defensive game plan, and it worked. And uh, but that being said, you allow you can't stop everything. So Drew Aller getting some yards on the ground for us, and against also Dylan Raiola getting some yards on the ground against us. Those are things that you don't like to see, but you kind of have to live with if you're going to play this style of defense. But still, I would like to see them find a way to kind of slow that down, because if it's a QB who can run, obviously you alter your game plan, but it could really bite. It could really end up biting you in the future. Um, Manufacturing QB pressure, we still have to kind of have heavy blitzes and different blitz packages and things like that, because we don't have a dog on that end. I think JT and Jack are good players. I think Kenyatta's a good player. I think Caden Curry's a good player. We don't have I'm not saying we have to have a Chase Young, college style Chase Young or a Bosa. Those guys are kind of generational and they don't just grow on trees, but we don't have any of those guys who you just look at and say, beat that left tackle, beat that right tackle, go get the sack for us. JT once in a while shows it, and he had a pretty solid game against Penn State, but not like we're used to seeing against them against Penn State. But um, we don't have those guys. We have to manufacture pressure. I wish we could just rush forward and get pressure. We don't see. We're just not going to be able to do it. So Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson are going to have to get creative and put aside any differences they might have. Keep getting creative to get to the quarterback and get pressure on the quarterback. I wish it didn't have to be that way. I think it would give us a lot of ability to utilize different looks and things with the defense if we could just rush forward and get to there. But not in the cards this year, guys. And I think they're doing a good job now of finding different ways to do that with delayed blitzes and things like that, corner blitzes and disguising. But again, I wish we could just have a dog out there who says, you know what, I don't care who's blocking me, I'm getting to that quarterback. Um, let's see here on my notes here. Not giving Jackson help at times. I thought there was a few times that Donovan Jackson could have used help on Abdul Carter. I'm not blaming Jackson for that. First game at left tackle ever is against a first round draft pick. That's a tough draw. There were times I felt we left him on an island a little too much. And again, as much as I praise the coaching staff, and I think overall they did give him help, but there's just times like on third and long, they just said, well, we got to have as many weapons going out to catch, to receive the catch as much as possible. Johnny, can you handle Abdul? And it's just a tough draw. I mean, Abdul's a great player. I did notice that they did adjust after that third and long sack. They started bunching up the receivers near Donnie Jackson to kind of stifle the space a little bit that Abdul was working with, and not let him that outside edge because Donnie was struggling to keep on that outside edge, which again is understandable. But there's times I felt like the whole game we should have kept and monitored and chipping Abdul Carter as much as humanly possible. G. Scott, Bennett Christian, whomever. Just chip him. Even Emeka Egbuka, put him in the slot and chip him because Emeka likes contact. He's a physical wide receiver. But again, that's a little bit of a nitpick, I guess, but it can cost you and it can kill drives. And I definitely think it's on film now for the coaches to notice. I think Johnny will get better from here on out. Um, the timing on deep passes is so off this year. It's not that Howard can't get it there. It's just that he's slow to the take sometimes. And I think that the receivers have picked up on that. I think that's part of why Jeremiah Smith stopped running. I think also he lost it in the sun a little bit. But Carnell Tate was open on that deep pass from the word go, and he just waited forever to throw the ball. I don't know if that was his first read or not. He probably maybe second or third read, and he got to him and said, "Wow, he's open." But I think that's something a quarterback, especially a veteran quarterback's got to be able to recognize a little quicker because that's 6 points. Same thing with Jeremiah Smith. That's 6 points. Now he actually overthrew Jeremiah a little bit, but Jeremiah again he held up a little bit because he's probably used to waiting on the ball, and again probably lost a little bit in the sun. So it's just something I wish would get cleaned up. I can see it slowly getting a little better, but I just don't know if it's ever going to hit that sweet spot that we needed to this season. It would be really helpful if it would, but still something we were in the week 10 and still working on. And I just don't know that it's ever going to get better. Maybe it's something that a quarterback and his receivers have to work on for years to really get that timing. And it's just not going to happen this year because Will Howard's a 1 year guy and Jeremiah Smith is in his first year and Tate in his second year, never having played with Howard before this year. So same with the Emeka Egbuka. I think it might just be something that we're just going to have to live with. Let's go to the ugly. The ugly is that the two mistakes from Will Howard. Look, I love Will Howard. I'm glad he's a Buckeye QB. I'm certainly not saying bench him by any stretch of the imagination. Let's not go there. But they were costly mistakes. Was he pushing? Was he pressing a little bit because it was a Penn State game and he has a history there? He wanted to go to Penn State. He's a Penn State guy. He's a Pennsylvania guy. Then he felt like he wasn't good enough, or they made him feel like he wasn't good enough for Penn State. Obviously, I think ironically, what back in the day where Will Howard was being recruited, Penn State ran an offense that probably would have fit Will Howard's strengths, to be honest. I don't know so much about now, but they did back then when they had the Sean Cliffords and the Will Levis's and the this is going back what 5, 6, 7 years ago. Who was a quarterback back then? But they had guys that who's Mr. Arm Punt there? I can't remember his name. I think he plays in the NFL as a backup right now. But I just that style of offense to me would have made sense for Will Howard's strengths. So to say it doesn't fit what you were looking for, you got me on that one. Glad he's a Buckeye though. Glad he was here to help us win. Was he pressing a little too much because of that? The pick six felt like he was just going through the motions, wasn't really looking, and he just the slot corner just obviously saw it coming and pretended to bail, and then he just jumped right in front of it and took it. And I just felt like Will Howard wasn't even looking for that, and he just was like, okay, there's a slant, and he just assumed the slant would be open. Credit to the defender, he made a great play, and then the fumble. You know what? If you're going, that's 14 points right there. 7 points to Penn State. That doesn't go their direction if we don't throw that pick six. And then there's a fumble, there's a touchback that would have been 7 for Ohio State. Now, here's the thing for me. If you're going to hold the ball out like that, dive and get in there. Don't just hold it out there and run like you have free reign, because those defenders are constantly pursuing you. He was holding it like a loaf of bread. That it was a great play by the defender. It bounces off his knee through the end zone. It's touchback. I remember watching the replay, going, "Oh no, oh no, 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 no!" And I knew it had come out, but I thought he had crossed when in the middle of the play before the ball came out. But a replay obviously showed he didn't. And I was hoping maybe the ball would go out the 1 and we just get the ball at the 1 or 2 yard line. Complete momentum change, but our defense answered the call, of course. But complete momentum change. We were really running it down their throat, really having no issues on offense. We were moving the ball, and that mistake, that's 14 points. You take those mistakes away, we likely win this game 27 points to 6, and then becomes a blowout. So two extreme, like, listen, there's going to be mistakes. The quarterback's going to make mistakes, but those are really costly on the road. You just can't get away with that against certain teams. Penn State, maybe you can get away with it. Obviously, we did get away with it, but you go into the playoff against a Georgia, a Tennessee, Oregon, whomever, and you can't do that. That's not something you recover from against those teams. So, and while Penn State's a very good team, they are not a top tier elite team like those other teams are. I know Georgia has their struggles, but look, you never count out Kirby Smart. That guy's a great coach, and that team's always full of NFL talent. Same with Oregon. Same with Texas. Same, these teams are well coached and got a lot of talent. You just can't make those kinds of mistakes. So let's just hope Will Howard learns from them and gets better and grows from here. And we'll see what happens against Purdue. Obviously, it's going to be hard to judge what comes up from the next game because it's Purdue. They should win by 30 or 40 points. They really should against Columbus. So, anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in. That's the good, bad, and the ugly of the Ohio State Penn State game this past Saturday, right here on the OHIO podcast on YouTube. Appreciate you guys as always. Goodbye, God bless, and go horse, go Bucks.